caviar, but we had it every damn day. You know? Yeah, too much caviar. And yet, it stirs up envy, fame. Who does she think she is, Marilyn Monroe?
I arrived at Marilyn's house in Brentwood, which is just outside of L.A. I pressed the doorbell. My heart was pounding because I absolutely had no idea what to expect. When her housekeeper opened the door, I was amazed. In front of me was a virtually empty living room. There was nothing in it but a couple of chairs. I put the tape recorder on the floor and was kneeling down trying to get it to work. Suddenly, in front of me, I saw yellow slacks, and a voice said, "Is there anything I can do to help?" And so that's the way I met Marilyn Monroe, on my knees. She looked great. She'd had her hair and makeup done, but she was clearly troubled. And I saw a roller coaster of moods, intensity, a lot of anger and sadness, as we discussed how her life had been changed by fame.
You know, since this article is going to be on fame, I like to state here and now, fame is fickle. And I know it. It has its compensation. It does. But it also has its drawbacks. And I've experienced both.
Very nice. Some girl.
What has Marilyn Monroe got that a million other women have and prefer not to show?
I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
Fame and happiness, it seems to me, is certainly temporary and a partial happiness. Or a waif. And I'm not calling myself an orphan, but I was brought up a waif. You see, I was brought up, I think, differently than the average American child. Because, no, but the average American child sort of, you know, like to be happy, you know. To be happy, that's it. Gee, happiness wasn't anything I ever took for granted. I loved to play. I didn't like the world around me too much, because it was kind of grim. I just felt like I was on the outside of the world, and suddenly everything opened up. I thought, gee, what happened? You know, the world became friendly. It opened up to me. I didn't realize the value of a sweatshirt in those days. I mean, I sort of was beginning to catch on, but I didn't quite get it. Because I couldn't really afford sweaters. We are all born sexual creatures, thank God. It's a pity so many people despise and crush this natural gift. Tom Kelly, you can find him around. He's still around town. You know, when he first said, you know, pose nude. But then I thought, if I'm going to be a symbol of something, I'd rather have it sex than some other thing they got symbols of. See, that's the trouble. A sex symbol becomes a thing. Well, you just hate to be a thing.
She had that wild laugh, sort of a trademark, but in the interview, it seemed to come out at odd moments, out of place. Marilyn gave her fans the credit for her fame. She felt she never had respect from the Hollywood studios, and only her adoring fans really understood her, and they had made her a star. Talking about them were the only really happy moments of the whole interview.
If I am a star, the people made me a star. There was no studio and no person. But the people did. There was a reaction that came in to the studio. I mean, the primary you can't imagine. and they say, you know, you're the only star that they got, or you're the, I said, star? You know, and they look at me as if I was nuts.
Marilyn, on behalf of Look magazine, I'd like to present to you the Look Achievement Award as the most outstanding feminine newcomer of 1952. Congratulations.
Thank you, Lauren. And my thanks to Look magazine.
Gee, I never felt I had an effect on people until I guess I was in Korea. I don't think until then, really, because studios that I worked with always said, remember one thing, you're no star. Sometimes people want to see if you're real. They kind of look to you, towards you, for some kind of, something that's, I guess, away from their everyday life. I guess you call that entertainment, huh?
And we all lose our charms in the end. Where cut or pear shape, these rocks don't lose their shape. Diamonds are a girl's best friend. Cartier. May come a time when fashion's a lawyer, diamonds are a girl's best friend. But get that ice or else no dice. He's your guy when stocks are high. But beware when they start to descend. It's then that those louses go back to their spouses. Diamonds are a girl's best friend.
People I like. The public scares me, like mobs scare me. But people, that's something you can trust. Coming out of my apartment in New York, you know, 57th Street, when I come out of the door, they say, Marilyn, hi, how do you feel this morning? You know, to me it's an honor. At first they whip it because, you know, they think, oh, it's a girl, she's got blonde hair, she's not out of shape. And then it says, my God, it's Marilyn Monroe. And I think that sexuality is only attractive when it's natural and spontaneous. This is where a lot of them miss the boat. You know what I mean?
Marilyn was ambivalent about being a sex symbol and ambivalent about the press who had reinforced that image. They had delivered the audience to her, but she still didn't trust them. That's why she wanted my questions in advance and clearance of the final story. Of course, she loved the attention of the press, but she hated being mobbed by reporters and photographers every time she came out in public.
They are, and I don't want to sound paranoid, but they are. They all like sort of a chunk, you know, somehow. I mean, they kind of take, like, pieces out of you. And I don't think that they realize it.
Where are you going from here?
We got a car.
Miss Monroe is now getting a new car. Apparently nobody has been seriously hurt or maimed.
Gonna raise it upstairs from you.
Or is
Really wonderful.
suffering as a result of this melee.
You know, you're kind of grabbing pieces out of you. And gee, you know, you do want to stay intact. You know, intact, on 2 feet. They want to know, like, well, what is it like? Sometimes it's nearly impossible. And there is a need for aloneness, which I don't think that most people realize for a creative person or an actress. It's almost having certain kind of secrets for yourself that you'll let the whole world in on. But you know, there has to be those moments of privacy. I used to laugh so loud and so gay. I would ask the boys, I said, can I ride your bicycle now? And they said, sure. And then I'd go zooming as I started to laugh in the wind, you know, riding down the block, laughing, you know. But I loved the wind because it felt like it caressed me.
Marilyn only got a couple of phone calls during the entire interview, and once when the phone rang, Marilyn told her housekeeper, "If it's an Italian, tell him I'm not here." I believed she was referring to Joe DiMaggio. Marilyn had 3 marriages, but all were failures. She didn't even want me to mention her first marriage at age 16 to a sailor.
Well, I have to explain to you, I was never used to being happy. So that wasn't something I was sort of counting on. I think I counted on it, yes, in marriage. When I was very young, and I used to love to play house. And you could pretend, you could say, hey, what about if you were such and such, and if I were such and such, and they'd say, oh yeah. And it was like, you could make your own boundaries.
Joe didn't come along with you, huh?
No.
Did he see you off in Hollywood last night?
Oh, yes.
Do you expect to return with him to the World Series?
I wish I could, but I'll be finishing this picture when
the World Series,
yes. I've never seen the World Series, and I would love to, but I just can't seem to fit the schedule together.
Miss Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio are presently having domestic difficulties. All I can say as her attorney is that this is what we would say with the conflict of careers.
And I used to get the feeling, and sometimes I still get it. I think, gee, sometimes I think I'm fooling somebody. I don't know who. Maybe myself. Maybe others.
Mr. Miller, why did you file an application for a passport?
I wanted to go to England.
For what reason?
You guess.
We'd like you to
I wanted to be with the woman who is going to be my wife.
You mean Marilyn Monroe?
That's correct.
When are you planning to have some children? Well, I'm not married yet, dear.
Miss Monroe.
Come on, Arthur. Cheek to cheek. Got it. No, we didn't. Come on, Arthur.
Anyway, you see why I couldn't have just been a housewife. I'd had too many fantasies. You know, I have feelings sometimes. Or some days when there are certain things that, I think, if only I were a cleaning woman. On the way to the studio, see somebody cleaning her. I think, oh, that's what I'd like to be. I guess I'll settle for what I am. Say, would you like a drink? No. Oh, come on, have a little.
Late in the interview, Marilyn began drinking champagne, and the more she drank, the more angry and defensive she became. She spilled out all her hurt over her treatment by Hollywood during 15 years in the movies. To me, she was like a record stuck in a groove. She felt they had never treated her like a star. Her anger really flashed when I asked her, very innocently, I thought, how she cranked herself up for her acting role.
The business of you cranking yourself up to
appear before the camera. Is part of what you're doing?
I don't crank anything. You know, I'm not a Model T. Yeah, I don't crank. I don't know, but I think that's kind of disrespectful to kind of refer to it that way. We are not machines, no matter how much they want to say we are not. I want to be an artist, an actress with integrity. When I'm older, then I'll play other kinds of parts. My teacher, Lee Strasberg, always said to me, you know, I said, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I'm a little nervous. He says, when you're not, give up. Because nervousness indicates sensitivity. I guess I think we just go out there, you know, that's all we do. We go out there and do it. But it's a real struggle. I mean, I really have to struggle. You've read there was some actor that once said about me that kissing me was like kissing Hitler.
Oh, my God.
Well, I think that's, you know, his problem. And if I really have to do intimate love scenes with an individual who really has these kind of feelings towards me, then my fantasy can come into play. In other words, out with him, in with somebody else. There's somebody else there, not him. He was never there. I think, in fact, the public would be quite disillusioned the way the industry treats its stars. I remember when I got the part in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, Jane Russell, she was the brunette in it, and I was the blonde. She got $200,000 for it, and I got my $500 a week, but to me that was considerable. But the only thing was I couldn't get a dressing room. And I said, I really got to this kind of a level. I said to them, look, after all, I am the blonde, and it is Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. Because they always kept saying, remember, you're not a star. I said, well, whatever I am, I'm the blonde. I mean, it got to that. But, you know, I start to sound paranoid or something. And I don't think I am. I think that every weakness is exaggerated. You know, a lot of people have real quirky problems. They wouldn't dare have anyone know. But one of my problems is that I'm late. Well, for instance, I guess they think that why I'm late, it has to do with some kind of arrogance. And I think it's the opposite of arrogance, just as a starter. Let's start with that. It's the opposite. I mean, the things they sent out about me from this corporation over here, we'll leave nameless.
And then?
That I've never lost sight of the fact that I am not at a studio at any time for discipline or to be disciplined. If you have a cold, how dare you have a cold? I mean, the executives can get cold and stay home for, you know, forever and phone it in. But how dare you get a cold?
Marilyn refused to acknowledge any responsibility for missing so many days on the set at Fox. She claimed she was sick, but the studio just didn't believe her. And in the midst of it all, Marilyn took off 2 more days to travel from Hollywood to New York to sing Happy Birthday to President Kennedy, whom she spoke of rather coyly, I thought, as a complete stranger.
I was honored when they asked me to appear at Madison Square Garden.
In the history of show business, perhaps there has been no one female who meant so much, who has done more.
It was like a hush came over the whole place, which, you know, I thought, oh, my God. You know, if I'd been wearing a slip, I would have thought it was showing or something.
The late Marilyn Monroe.
There was kind of this hushed squawking. I thought, oh, my God, what if no sound comes out? And then you think, my God, I'll sing this song if it's the last thing I'll ever do. You know?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Mr. President. Happy birthday to you.
I can now retire from politics after having had Happy Birthday sung to me in such a sweet, wholesome way.
Did you meet Kennedy?
Afterwards, they had some kind of a reception because I never did see the food. But maybe that was in another part of the play. And I had met the Attorney General briefly. So it was good to see a smiling, friendly face.
Less than 3 weeks later, Marilyn was fired from Something's Gotta Give. To Fox, Madison Square Garden was the last straw. She had been absent 21 of 33 shooting days, and to them, she was obviously unstable and falling apart. Marilyn was exhausted. She had drunk a full bottle of champagne, and she had barely eaten anything. And she continued to paint herself as the victim.
Fame is also a burden. An industry, I don't think, should behave like, let's say, a mother whose child maybe has, let's just say the worst is run out in front of a car. So what do they do with the child? But instead of clasping the child to them, they start beating up on the child. They feel that it gives them some kind of a privilege to walk up to you and say anything to you. So at least it's something that, let's say, I experienced. So it's not just that, okay, fame will go by. So long, I've had you, fame. Yeah. If it goes by, I told you it was fickle. I don't know if this is going to come off on tape, but I know what I mean.
It's great.
Well, I hope we got something here. But please don't make me look like a joke.
Those were the last words she said to me. I said goodbye, and as I walked down the driveway, I looked back for a second. Marilyn was framed in the door, and she waved and called, "Hey, thanks." I went back to New York and wrote the piece, and it appeared in Life magazine in the August 3rd issue. On August 5th, the phone rang. It was a reporter telling me that Marilyn was dead. I was dumbfounded. Marilyn had obviously been a woman in pain, but I never saw any sign that this was a woman giving her last interview, a woman on the verge of suicide. In the 30 years that have passed since then, I've listened to those tapes a dozen times to see if I somehow missed some clues. I still don't know the answer.
Miss Monroe has suffered from psychiatric disturbance for a long time. Mood changes were abrupt and unpredictable. In our investigation, we have learned that Miss Monroe had often expressed wishes to give up, to withdraw, and even to die. On more than one occasion in the past, when disappointed and depressed, she had made a suicide attempt using sedative drugs. On the basis of all the information obtained, it is our opinion that the case is a probable suicide.
Marilyn Monroe, Hollywood's most flamboyant blonde since Jean Harlow, went to her tomb in a plain dress today, following simple funeral services attended by only a handful of friends and relatives. Marilyn's body was dressed in a plain green dress of a light shade, which she obtained in Florence, Italy. She lay in solid bronze casket, lined with champagne-colored velvet. Marilyn Monroe has found surcease from the many personal sorrows that afflicted her life, both private and public. Her resting place, not too far from the movie mills where she began her meteoric rise to stardom.